Welcome to another episode of Jukebox Zeroes. I'm Lee.
I'm Patrick.
Oh boy, it's time. We're back in Marlboro once again in the hidden secret fortress, recording another episode.
Hidden Valley, like the dressing.
Yep. We are just surrounded by ranch dressing right now.
Yeah,
bottles
the
and
old
bottles
ranch.
of it. If you're hard up for ranch dressing, please give us a call. Our address is out there.
It's just on the ranch, Marlboro, Mass.
Yeah. So we got we got would you say this album is a bit of a doozy, Patrick?
It is something. Yeah, it's a trip down the old something or other.
It's a trip down Heavy Metal Boulevard.
Yeah, there we go.
First stop, Gravy Train. I'm not sure where I was going with that.
Let's try that again.
Yeah, let's not try that again, Patrick.
Okay.
I think we should just abandon that bit straight away.
Yeah, let's get to the next section.
Yeah, before we introduce our guest, we gotta fucking pay the piper with the apology section.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, that was the apology song. We've always done that from the very beginning. If you go back and listen, we fucking have. I don't know, you think you're so big?
Yeah, if you didn't hear it in the first 7 episodes, you're an idiot.
Clean out your ears. Clean the fluff out of your ears, fluffhead.
So the apology section.
Was that racist? I feel like that's racist to someone.
All right, well, we can get that apology out of the way right now.
I'm sorry if fluffhead is a racist term. I literally found it out from a Fish song.
Oh, yeah.
I got something to apologize for. I got sick again. So I'm going to sound slightly raspier than usual. And
I like it.
Not fun. I don't like it, Patrick. That's where you and I are going to have to... That's where you and I are going to have to disembark.
All right, but like, there's something to be said for suffering for your fans, you know? maybe a little rasp.
Yeah.
It's just what they need.
I hope all 6 of you that listen to this podcast are satisfied, us included.
Excellent.
So it's really more like 4 people. Anyway.
I don't listen to this. I don't know where you got that idea for the last time. I don't listen to this podcast.
So wait, this whole time that we've been recording, you've just been kind of saying random words into a void, and they just happen to just sort of coalesce into a coherent podcast about bad music?
Yeah, I also don't edit the episodes either, or I do, but blindly. I just follow the transients on the screen. Yeah,
you're like Beethoven, except you're not making anything interesting.
Yeah. Beethoven was blind, right? Oh no, he didn't
was
have
deaf.
He was missing a sense of taste. That's what it was.
Okay, so you're absolutely nothing like Beethoven.
No. Also, I wait. Beethoven didn't have the hearing.
Right.
Sorry about what I said before. That's apology.
So you're absolutely nothing like Beethoven whatsoever.
I don't know. We're both gentlemen. All right, let's introduce our guest.
Why don't we?
Yeah. All right. This gentleman. He's going to have to remind me of the current group that he's in because he's been in a lot over the years, and they've all been fantastic. Up in the metal scene, up in New Hampshire.
Yeah, he's a metalman.
He's a metalman in Northern Mass, where all the good metal happens around here. His name is Josiff Scurto.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on and talking about Black Sabbath.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Been a while. Me and Pat go back a few years. And, I play a couple of metal bands. I've been doing it for playing in metal bands for about 15 years or so, all around New England. My current bands I'm in right now, I play in a little death metal band called Angel Morgue, which is a family-friendly, birthday party music.
Nice.
I play in another band called Martyrvore, which has been around since about 2001. A bunch of guys I've been really close friends with for a really long time. Multiple lineup changes. And I play in another band called Hiss, not to be confused with Kiss. Don't sue me, Gene Simmons.
Yeah, he's hot to do that.
Shouldn't have said that. Now the idea's in his head.
But it's a little instrumental band I have going on. Playing a couple other inactive bands, just like studio projects with my wife. I do a shoegaze band. We got an industrial band starting up pretty soon. So definitely cool. Pretty busy. So
yeah, busy man. I love that. Yeah, good
totally.
shit. And Jim and I go back to we're ex-patriots of Whole Foods.
We are.
Market,
we are.
Is that so?
That is so.
Indeed.
I'm not going to voice my opinions on the air, but we did both work there.
We did.
And
both work in the meat counter?
No.
I was veggies, he was meat.
Yeah.
Okay.
both both essentials.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's dive into this record we got going on
All
here.
right.
Yeah, I kind of gave a little bit of it away a little bit earlier, but now the fucking surprise has been ruined. Wah, wah, wah. That was for you, Patrick.
Oh.
You ruined the surprise.
Oh, sorry about that.
Anyway, let's get into a little bit of... What do you guys say to a long-winded contextual essay that kind of meanders a little bit?
Oh, I mean, we do it every time.
It wouldn't be an episode of Jukebox Zeroes without one of those.
No,
Let's
sir.
do it.
All right. So, by 1982, the legendary heavy metal pioneers of Black Sabbath found themselves in a bit of a problem. A little over half a decade had passed since the band dismissed their original vocalist, Ozzy Osbourne, but now his replacement, Ronnie James Dio, had left as well, leaving the band without a singer. Also during this time, original drummer Bill Ward returned to the group, freshly sober. Black Sabbath wasted no time getting to work on finding a replacement vocalist, considering as candidates the likes of Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin, David Coverdale of Whitesnake, and they even received an audition tape from a then-unknown singer by the name of Michael Bolton.
Oh, yeah.
I want to live in a world where Michael Bolton was the singer of Black Sabbath.
Yeah, you know what? That would have been actually pretty great.
Generations of
why
metal.
not? We live in a post-irony generation. Why not?
But in this world, it wouldn't even be ironic.
Right, post-irony.
Yeah.
As in, we're over irony. We're in a world where Michael Bolton and Black Sabbath can flourish.
Yeah.
Side by side.
Generations of metal fans loving Michael Bolton's lyrics and vocals in Black Sabbath.
I know, just the thought of it is quite absurd and makes me chuckle.
When an Iron Man loves a woman.
Oh, yeah.
How am I supposed to live without you? That's about death. That's totally metal.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the band settled upon Deep Purple vocalist Ian Gillan at the suggestion of their manager. Gillan committed to the group after a night of heavy drinking with Sabbath guitarist Tony Iommi and bassist Geezer Butler. And though the project was pitched as an unrelated supergroup, it ultimately ended up under the Black Sabbath banner after pressure from their manager and their record label, Warner Brothers. This new incarnation set to work recording in May of 1983, during which it became more and more apparent that Gillan may not have been the correct choice for the band, bringing a down-to-earth immediacy that was completely foreign to Black Sabbath's dark and fantastical songwriting. As Tommy Iommi put it in his memoir, Ian's lyrics were about the sexual things or true facts, even about stuff that happened at the manor there, and then they were good, but quite a departure from Geezer's and Ronnie's lyrics. Gillan himself would later admit that he was the wrong man for the job in a 1992 interview, saying, "I was the worst singer Black Sabbath ever had. It was totally incompatible with any music they'd ever done. I didn't wear leathers, I wasn't of that image. I think the fans probably were in a total state of confusion." To make matters worse, the final mix of the album, which would be titled Born Again, had gone completely awry, leaving the final product sounding muffled and hazy. This, housed in a garish Iommi-approved album cover, featured a demonic baby that British magazine Kerrang! Called one of the worst album sleeves in all of death metal. I mean, all of regular metal, not death metal. They would probably make a shitty death metal sleeve, though, as well. We're not talking about death metal, though. We're talking about Black Sabbath. Born Again was a commercial success, though a far cry from what Sabbath was used to, but inspired widely mixed opinions critically. AllMusic.com, our go-to site, has referred to it as one of heavy metal's all-time greatest disappointments. Consequence of Sound has said, Born Again is best forgotten. Gillan and Iommi just don't seem to have a feel for one another as they awkwardly stumble over lackadaisical riffs and ill-timed breakdowns. And from Louder Sound, they said Gillan was simply too big a personality for Sabbath to accommodate. Square peg, round hole, Born Again was a mess. At the same time, however, the album would take on a whole new life over time, becoming something of a fan favorite. A particularly famous review from Canadian journalist Martin Popov gave the album 10 out of 10 stars in the 2005 Collector's Guide to Heavy Metal. The album has also received praise from as varied a collection as Lars Ulrich of Metallica.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
Bill Stevenson of Black Flag, Silanaz of Dimmu Borgir, and even Ozzy Osbourne himself, who said of the album that it was the best thing I've heard from Sabbath since the original group broke up.
Wow.
I mean...
That's a bold claim.
Who's ultimately right in this case? We don't know, so we're going to judge for ourselves. We're listening to Born Again by Black Sabbath.
Tonight.
Just now.
Yeah.
Just right.
I mean, you can listen to it at any time of day, really.
Yeah, it's all online. You can.
Yeah, we're not
streaming.
We're not telling you how to live your life or anything like that.
Yeah, do it at 3 a.m. on the John if you want.
Yeah, you live your own damn life. I don't know. You think you're so much better than us or something?
All right, onward to the Black Sabbath thing.
We're diving right into it without any sort of fanfare. This is track number 1. It's the track that is number 1.
The first one.
This track is entitled Trashed.
Knew I wouldn't make it. The conscience couldn't take it. I was turning, time's burning. The ground was in my sky. I was laughing. The bitch was trash, and that was in my eyes.
Okay, so full disclosure, I'm not especially familiar with Black Sabbath's 80s output, so right at the start, this track took me off guard on all fronts. This does not sound like a Black Sabbath track. This sounds like a Judas Priest track.
Yeah, Paranoid it ain't.
Or like a really B-sidey Night Ranger track.
Yeah, or even something that could be on like a trauma movie party scene. That's kind of where it brings me. It just comes out of left field. I mean, it's obviously it wasn't supposed to be a Black Sabbath album originally.
Right.
So that's why you don't get that Black Sabbath feel to it. It just gives me this really cheesy 80s party kids like vibe.
Oh yeah, totally.
This was before like glam metal really took off.
Yeah, yeah. This is almost like the godfather of the glam metal scene. I mean, it's almost too good to be true that this was actually a Black Sabbath record. I mean, it should be prudent to mention that Ian Gillan is 38 years old at this point. I mean, he's an amazing singer.
Oh yeah, he's still killing it.
Right. Maybe a little too old to be singing like these kind of lyrics, though.
Yeah.
I mean, 38's not really old necessarily, but it's still too old for this.
Right.
I feel like.
Yeah, maybe some more insightful lyrics at this point. Where this sort of feels like the end of the night, where like that guy's still really egging you on to take another beer, and you're like, man, I just want to like go get some McDonald's and go home.
Totally. Well, the story behind the song is too that Ian Gillan was trashed.
Yeah.
And he took I think Bill Ward's car, and they recorded the album at Branson Manor, Richard Branson's former house.
Right.
I'm not sure if he still lives there, but he took his car on a drunken joyride around the racetrack and crashed it. So he wrote the lyrics around his night leading up to the event of him crashing the car.
He didn't just crash it. He like completely peeled out on it. It like flipped a bunch of times, and he ended up just like a couple inches away from landing in the pool.
Yeah. I mean, something as metal as that should have had a little bit more of an exciting song to go along with it, in my opinion.
I can't imagine Bill Ward was too happy about that.
No.
I mean, all the stories were just like, oh, Ian Gillan took Bill Ward's car. Kind of buried the lead there.
Yeah.
So this was Bill Ward's return to Black Sabbath, his brief return, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't on Mob Rules.
He wasn't on Mob Rules.
Or Heaven and Hell.
And Hell. That was, I'm probably getting the name wrong, Vinny Appice?
Yeah, Vinny Appice.
Appice. Right.
Tomato.
Yeah,
exactly. Appice.
It's a nice say. I play the drum.
I mean, you got to say it with the fingers.
Hey, stomanghe.
I'm going to have to apologize to the Italians.
That's right. I'm Italian. It's cool.
Oh, yeah.
On behalf of all Italians.
I'm married to an Italian, too. It's
there you go. So, Italian by injection.
Yeah.
I have no excuse. So this will be my last episode of Jukebox Zeroes as I go into hiding.
The Italians are after you.
Hey, you know this guy over here?
I mean, not to harp on this, but what a nuts time it used to be like a rock musician when like you could have just taken a break from recording and just been like, I'm going to drive around the fucking mansion grounds.
Oh yeah. They could just...
That was just something they were doing, like just to kill time.
Yeah, they're just infants.
Yeah.
Just with too much money. It's really funny to hear these stories. You don't hear a lot of stories like that anymore with like the current, like, I don't know, like Fleet Foxes or like, you know, Decemberists or those types of bands.
Yeah, a band of horses and their raging parties.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Maybe Queens of the Stone Age might do that, but
Oh, yeah, they're still doing meth.
That. So anyway, this track was one of a few off of Born Again to actually be released as a single. It didn't chart. But more noteworthy, it was included among the Parents Music Resource Center's 1985 list of the Filthy 15, which were the 15 songs they considered to be the most objectionable at the time, joining the company of artists like Wasps, including their song Fuck Like a Beast.
Ooh, classic.
So you know they're in good company.
Yeah, good stuff, good stuff.
As for the song itself, it's all right.
Yeah, Ian's voice really kind of, it sticks out a lot, for sure.
Yeah.
Wasn't what I was expecting, but once you're in, it's a little less objectionable.
Yeah, it's kind of like the song starts and you're like, okay, when's this going to be over?
Yeah, it's not great as a Black Sabbath song.
No, totally not. It's just really repetitive. The vocals, I mean, like I said, Ian Gillan's a great vocalist, but it just doesn't work.
The production is a big part of it, too.
Yeah.
I have to call attention to that. The guitar tone is just like, it just felt like a rusty ice cream scoop in my ear.
It's tinny.
It's very tinny, and the drums just are like way too much reverb on it. You're just not getting those like nice subtle Bill Ward isms.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't have that thick classic Iommi sound.
Yeah, it's very tinny.
It doesn't have his classic Laney sound. It's like Marshall solid state practice amp sound.
Yeah.
It's really thin.
Maybe this album could have benefited from, not to jump back to the previous episode, maybe it could have benefited from some Hugh Padgham gated snares or something.
Oh, yeah, maybe, but probably not.
Or is that an incredibly terrible idea that I should be ashamed of?
I would just sound like Bill Ward and the Mechanics or some shit.
Yeah. It's not a great Black Sabbath song, but as a just 80s metal song on of its own, it's certainly serviceable.
Yeah.
It's cliche as hell, but it's adequate.
It could hold its own with like Dawkins and that kind of band.
Right. That's pretty much the nicest thing that I can say about it, which doesn't really bode well for the rest of the album, does it?
It has the brand name of Black Sabbath on it, so you could throw it on in a party without like too many people complaining about it.
Right.
Because they would just look at it, oh, it's Black Sabbath, okay.
Yeah.
Or maybe they look at it and go, this is Black Sabbath?
Yeah, you're going to get one of those two reactions out of it for sure.
What the heck, hell? All right. How do you feel about going on to the next track?
Do it.
All right. Let's jump ahead to track number 3. Yep. Jumping ahead a little bit. Skipping track 2 for now. We're going to go to track number 3, titled Disturbing the Priest. So this is silly.
A little bit, but I don't know. I kind of liked it.
I mean, this is coming out at a time when like Iron Maiden and Merciful Fate were really, helping to darken the mood of metal a little bit. That had just been developing since the 1970s. But
right.
if those songs by those groups are more like introspective, psychological, supernatural horror films like The Omen or Rosemary's Baby, this is like House on Haunted Hill. It's an obvious groaning prop skeleton with Vincent Price's voice dripping out of it, with ham slowly oozing from the gaps in the teeth.
He's actually in the music video.
It's a skeleton going, "Arr!" I mean, we have to give it up to Mr. Gillan, of course, for pulling off all the vocal gymnastics, but it still sounds pretty silly, though.
Yeah.
Especially when he does, like, the evil sort of, like, maniacal laughter sort of stuff.
Do you remember those Halloween Halloween decorations, like, that were around in the 90s, but, like, you would clap your hands and it was a spider that would come down and go, yes. That's a little bit like that.
Yeah. The things
they
with the
still
motion
have those.
sensor.
Oh, of course they do.
Yeah.
They made all of them in the early 90s, and they just haven't gotten rid of them yet. Yeah. They're in a warehouse in China for the past decade and a half.
I never enjoy going into a Spirit Halloween store for that specific reason. Because you can't walk a few steps without, like, an obviously fake fiberglass corpse just sort of popping up going, "Brrr!" I just want to go to the section where they have I just want to go to the section with the face paint. All I did was make one step, and now there's a guy going, "Brrr!" I'm the ravages of age. I'm the real threat. So in my experience, and maybe you can like comment on this,
Sure.
Any good 80s metal song, I feel like, has to have a good, memorable guitar riff.
Absolutely.
And in this song's case, I guess it would be the part where Tommy Iommi is making car alarm noises with his guitar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he discovered tremolo at that point. He went from the SG to, he had some kind of custom guitar he was using in this era. And yeah, it's a cheesy song. I mean, like you said, 1983. You know, you get Iron Maiden, you get Merciful Fate, then you get the first wave of black metal that came out, like bands like Venom and Hellhammer, that are really starting to push the real satanic imagery into the music, and then bands like Bathory coming along a little bit later. But then you have Disturbing the Priest, which is kind of, yeah, it's like the Halloween store version of a horror show. You know, it's
it's just like more obvious that Ian is of a different time.
absolutely,
Right.
yeah. He's coming from a completely different type of, you know, heavy rock at the time, jumping into a little bit more of the heavy metal, which was still in its juvenile stages.
Now that I think of it, he was probably coming out of the time when like the scariest things were like Alice Cooper or Arthur Brown and that sort of stuff.
Totally, yeah. Exactly.
This track, it's decent, like the last one, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's very, very, very silly as hell, but as far as I'm concerned, the only thing that kept it from being, like, too forgettable was how silly and Crypt Keeper-y Ian Gillan was acting.
Right.
Indeed.
Yeah, and the music video that has Vincent Price in the video, so it's funny that you mentioned the Vincent Price laugh.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I forgot to watch the video.
Yeah, it's hilarious. There's a couple of videos for the album, and the one for Trash to just, you know, the face palm the whole time. It's just that cheesy.
What was it about?
It was really hard to tell, but it was about some kid getting into a race car and getting into some trouble driving around a classic car with people chasing him, and then there was a girl, and then he crashes the car at the end, and you see the police kind of looking at the car, and then you see, after the police are all gone, you see the kid kind of sneak out from behind a bush and just walk away. Like nothing happened at all. Just like nonchalant, like, all right, well.
You know what? That sounds like an 80s music video.
Oh, yeah.
The early 80s were great for that shit, because they were playing whatever like they could get their hands on, because there was only like, you know, 19 music videos. When they first decided to boot up MTV, they're like, oh shit, we need to fill 24 hours.
Like, especially with metal music videos, like 9 out of 10 of those music videos were like bands going like, look what I'm doing.
It's so funny how like in the very beginning, how you could tell how little of the record budget went into the like promotional music videos at first, because it was all focused on recording and making a good sounding record, and then like, okay, yeah, here's a $30 Super 8 camera, let's go like film behind your the manager's house in Beverly Hills.
We got this warehouse space, we could make a backdrop with cardboard and trash bags, and, you know, make it look really post-apocalyptic.
Oh yeah, and they got those sick fucking factory fans, and some lights. Oh yeah,
in the factories that are generating sparks and not much else.
No.
So the reason I skipped over track number 2, I mean, here's track number 2. This is track number 2, Stonehenge. Yeah, right? How are we supposed to comment on that?
I mean,
transitional noise? What are we supposed to say about that?
It's like one of those spooky sounds of Halloween cassette tapes you used to get.
Kind of is.
I mean, you could have told me that was a B-side off of Eno's Another Green World, and I probably wouldn't have been able to tell the difference. That was some good atmospheric shit. I dug it.
Track number 4 is pretty much the same sort of thing. Here's track number 4, The Dark.
Yeah.
Well, this is just a vocalist throbbing gristle track, really.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, what are we really supposed to say about just transitional noise in between songs?
Right.
What else can you say?
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of liked those moments on this record. It was sort of the point where you can see into Iommi's mind a little more.
It's like a palate cleanser a little bit?
Yeah, definitely a palate cleanser. Felt a little more inspired. Like, I kind of liked those moments.
Yeah, but, I mean, still, there's really not much we can discuss.
Right.
So instead of discussing those tracks, why don't we discuss something else? Something else related to Born Again that was a particularly infamous mess that could very well be more notorious than the album itself, depending who you talk about.
Oh, yeah.
I am, of course, talking about the 1983 Born Again World Tour.
Oh, man.
It was a highly ambitious 96-stop tour that experienced all kinds of problems throughout. Even before the tour began, Bill Ward had to drop out after falling back into drinking and drug use. While he checked himself back into rehab, the band recruited ELO drummer Bev Bevan to tour with him. I think he also played with The Move. Yeah, this is true.
Mm-hmm.
Bev Bevan.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Why not?
Yeah. I mean, they've already got Ian Gillan on board, so...
Yeah, might as well get somebody else.
The musical spectrum is kind of all over the place.
I mean, that's casting a really wide net, though. Deep Purple to Yellow.
Yeah.
Jeff Lynne is going to, like, sing on the next record and produce it.
If only.
More timpanis.
As the band made their way through Europe and North America, beginning with Drammen in Norway and ending in Springfield, Massachusetts. Ooh.
I'm just laughing because it's Springfield.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that Springfield was every bit of a shit show in the 80s as it is today?
I mean...
Because you're probably right.
Yeah.
But anyway... As they went through Europe and North America, all manners of difficulties emerged, ranging from technical snafus to religious protests. There was even one instance where the band got stuck in a November blizzard while crossing the Continental Divide. Roughly 30% of the 96 dates ended up in delay or cancellation for those reasons, or for just, poor ticket sales. The tour was particularly infamous for incidents and mishaps surrounding the stagecraft, many of which could be attributed to their manager, Don Arden, whose daughter Sharon Osbourne was coincidentally managing Ozzy at the time.
Oh.
One particularly baffling idea was to hire a dwarf actor to open shows, dressed as the Demon Baby from the album cover. In an interview, Ian Gillan said of this questionable artistic choice, "We noticed a dwarf walking around the day before the opening show, and we're saying to Don, we think this is in the worst possible taste, this dwarf, And Don's going, nah, the kids will love it. It'll be great."
Oh, good God.
Yeah, so
Where do you get that idea, Don Arden?
So they got this little dwarf running around on their 30-foot-high Stonehenge props that they have on stage.
Oh, we haven't even gotten to the Stonehenge props yet.
You know what the teeny boppers like these days? Dwarves.
Painted red. It's a great idea.
Tiny red men. It's like a morality play. Put it into picture. Gillan himself would also run into problems with the stagecraft, which included many buckets of dry ice that engulfed the stage in a thick fog. Not only did Gillan find himself tripping over equipment among the chemical haze, but as he had problems memorizing the classic Black Sabbath songs he expected to learn for the tour, he'd conveniently place cue seats throughout the stage. But these ended up lost among the dry ice fog.
That's right. He did. Yeah, he had little notes with lyrics taped all over the floor of the stage, and
that's rough.
The dry ice and the big smoke show came through. He couldn't really see his lyrics. He would. I guess he stumbled over Tony Iommi's pedal board a few times. just such a mess.
I forget the exact reason Ian Gillan was having so much trouble learning the lyrics. But I think I'm probably paraphrasing here. I think the gist of it was just I can't make sense of this story.
Right.
Which kind of falls into how Ian Gillan can't really seem to sing about anything that's not, directly related to real world events. In terms of I'm driving a car. I can sing about this.
Yeah.
I'm driving a car through the crazy medieval dimension. No, that's too weird.
Yeah, he's an observational lyricist.
For sure.
I can't possibly remember words about Iron Men.
And Children of the Grave. What are these kids doing?
What is a nib?
That's a hell of a story, though, about the little red man.
Oh yeah.
The way it was
really is just like the Spinal Tap bit. It's
the way it was supposed to work out. The guy would be on stage on the giant props that we're about to talk about, and there would just be a recording of a baby screaming that he would just sort of lip sync to, and then just fall over the back of the prop onto a pile of mattresses. This is true.
Good God.
But the most notorious of them all was the main stage itself, which was littered with enormous replicas of the structures from Stonehenge. These props were, to put it lightly, fucking enormous. For even a stadium stage. The band had problems fitting all of their equipment around the props to the point where only a few of them were ever used at a time. But when the tour crossed over into North America, there were venues that flat out couldn't fit them at all, and they ended up abandoning them in storage partway through.
I'm just picturing like there being like a pair of props that like they can only fit one, so like just one is awkwardly off to the side or
just
something,
kind of positioned awkwardly,
or like slightly off the stage with just like a stack of boxes holding up like,
like one side,
one bit of it.
Apparently, they left those props in some dock in New York City when they crossed over, and when they're interviewing Bill Ward about them, he's like, they probably got left in the Atlantic Ocean at this point, and a future generation is going to find it and think they're Atlantis because they're just enormous.
That's so funny.
Yeah, the little red man. I mean, I wish I could have been there to see that.
It's probably a giant rat's nest now,
or something, you know?
Covered in barnacles.
Oh, yeah.
Bassist Geezer Butler has maintained that the props were also Don Arden's idea, basically explaining, he wrote the dimensions down and gave it to our tour manager. He wrote it down in meters, but he meant to write it down in feet. The people who saw it 15 meters instead of 15 feet. It was 45 feet high, and it wouldn't fit on any stage anywhere, so we just had to leave it in the storage area. Ian Gillan, on the other hand, has suggested that it was Butler's idea, and that when asked for details by their set designers, the only instructions Butler gave them was life-size. Real smart.
There is a lot of, that guy did it. No, that guy. It was that guy.
I'm not taking credit.
I don't know. He did it.
I don't know what he's talking about.
It was Hugh Padgham did it. It was his idea. Hugh Padgham, if you want to come on the podcast sometime.
Yes, do come on the podcast and review Love Beach with us.
Yes. That would be great.
Same goes to Don Arden if he's listening. If he's even still alive.
So yeah, I don't know.
How much cocaine do you think Don Arden was doing at this point?
Well, it was the early 80s.
So much cocaine.
Yeah. And some of that was definitely spilling off onto the band, whether they wanted it or not.
Yeah. Every idea was a good idea when the snow was involved.
Oh, yeah.
Butler has also gone on to say that he told this story to the Stonehenge props to an associate scriptwriter for director Rob Reiner, who would later craft a similar scene in the heavy metal mockumentary This Is Spinal Tap.
Yeah, definitely.
All in all, the tour was a fracas from front to back, and it ended up representing a breaking point for Butler, who, along with Ian Gillan, left the group after the tour's conclusion, leaving only Tony Iommi along as the original sole member of the band until their 1992 album Dehumanizer, which saw Butler returning along with former members Ronnie James Dio and Vinny Appice.
Oh, interesting.
Yep.
No, that was actually a pretty good album. When that
it's
came
the Heaven and Hell lineup, basically.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
That was their first good album in probably a decade.
Yeah, after Born Again, like when it was just Tony Iommi, as I understand it, he didn't put out very good stuff.
And he had like Glenn Hughes singing on the next album, and it was Black Sabbath featuring Tony Iommi on the next record.
Wasn't there a vocalist named Tony Martin at some point?
Yes. Yeah, Tony Martin. I think he was on Headless Cross was the name of the album, I believe, and Tear as well.
Yes. Yeah, Tyr.
Yeah.
Tear.
Yeah. I think the only other member that really stuck around with Tony Iommi was the keyboardist, who was normally just there for touring, Jeff Nicholson.
Yeah. So he became like an official member at some point.
Right. The official, unofficial.
And then at some point they took that away from him again.
Yeah.
Like they just made him official, and then they were just like, no.
Yeah, no more keyboards.
Oh, man, it's like the guy from Pink Floyd. What's it? Rick Wright. They Rick Wrighted him.
I thought Rick Wright was a full member.
He was a full member up until the final cut. He wasn't on that record, and then he came back as a touring member when fucking the Snooze Fest.
Oh, man.
Momentary Lapse of Reason.
Division Bell?
And that record, too, yeah. Well, the thing was, he actually made more money as a touring and like an unofficial hired gun than he did as a member, because like the record company, because of whatever shitty deal they had, like paid their hired guns more.
Right.
There's probably like all sorts of union stuff that had to do with that too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it just ended up being a better thing for him.
Oh man. I forget the name of him, but the bassist for, I don't know how I know this story, but the bassist for Bon Jovi, even though he's pretty much played on every single Bon Jovi record and is one of the few people to have like stayed in the band like as members have come and gone, but he's never been considered like an official member of the band, even though he's played on all the albums and all the singles and toured with them all the time. I forget his name, but
I vaguely remember that.
Bon Jovi does too, apparently.
Yeah, I vaguely remember hearing something about that on the Behind the Music back when that was on VH1.
I don't know if they ever did make him an official member of the band either.
Yeah, they just, man, that's rough.
Yeah.
Raw deal. I can't remember your name, but come on the podcast anyway. You know who you are. Love Beach is waiting for you, nameless Bon Jovi bassist.
Billy Bassman.
Big Mouth Billy Bass.
Big Mouth Billy Bassman.
We were talking about
the river.
we were talking about Born Again, right?
Yes.
Let's get back to that. On to track number 5, titled Zero the Hero.
Face is normal, that's the way of bread. That's the way you're gonna stay ahead. Burn name to the TV channel. Someone else's fingers on the control panel. What you gonna be, brother? Zero the hero. What you wanna be, don't
So,
Oh boy.
I'd be lying if I didn't cop to that bass line. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's a good one. It's a head bobber.
It's geezery. Yeah.
It's not a head banger. It's a head bobber.
It is a bopper, a toe tapper.
Yeah.
And those thudding, like bell-like guitar notes that punctuate the verses sound really cool and foreboding as well. I mean, I chalk this up to the aforementioned problem the album had with mastering, but I'm also just now starting to notice how really badly tinny the guitars are at some point.
Oh,
especially
yeah.
during the solos.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just sound like they're just like no attack on them. They're just like the way they're mixed, like they phase each other out, and it's just like very, very hollow. Just like completely toothless tone.
Total Marshall solid state practice amp, dimed out, no pedals, nothing, just direct in. Zero the Hero. That's probably one of the more popular songs in the album. I think Guns N' Roses definitely liked it a lot, 'cause that riff is very similar to Paradise City.
It sure is.
It's the same
Yeah, a little
meter, you know. I mean, that song's been covered by tons of bands. Actually, death metal band Cannibal Corpse covered Zero the Hero.
Oh, wow.
Really?
On the Hammer Smash Face EP. They covered that. And lead singer Chris Barnes actually cites Born Again as one of his favorite albums.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
That contrarian.
Yeah. So that says
Chris Barnes.
Yeah, Chris Barnes is quite a joke in the metal world. He's,
He's a bit of a jokester.
yeah, he because he left Cannibal Corpse, he started this other band called 6 Feet Under, which is just complete garbage. It's like one of the guitarists from the band Obituary joined up with him, and it's basically Obituary riffs that never made it into the band over the most cheesy death metal lyrics you could imagine. I mean, they have a song called 420 about, 420, a death metal song about,
What are we,
it's
19?
420. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, but yeah, so
basement.
yeah, pretty much.
Hot take from Joe Scurto.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. Maybe. I don't know.
Possibly.
So maybe it's just me, but like I kind of like this song, but the rhythmic cadence of like Ian Gillan's vocals are kind of weird and
They
kind
sure
of
are.
Red Hot Chili Peppers-y.
Yeah.
And they kind of
Oh, he's rapping,
yeah.
See,
How many-
the hero.
Hoop there, hoop there, hoop there, there, hoop there.
He's a bucket of chuckles, that Anthony Kiedis.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Always good for a chuckle.
I feel like we need to do a Red Hot Chili Peppers album at some point.
Oh,
but
man. So many to
really,
choose from.
Are there really any that are considered like universally terrible?
I mean, One Hot Minute was
One Hot Minute, right, that's it.
controversial because of Dave Navarro was
Right.
on it.
Yeah.
So the other guy.
A complete departure from Blood Sugar Sex Magic.
Right.
Yeah.
Then as well, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have to cover that at some point.
Yeah.
I feel like
Hot take, I kind of like that album.
Ooh, drama.
Yeah. Or at least a couple songs.
Yeah.
So this song's got obvious problems. I mean, certainly among them that is basically a song featuring Gillan just going, God, you're boring for 7.5 minutes.
Yeah.
But I kind of like this song. It's more than just okay like the last two songs were.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was like a kind of a vamp at the end of it that was just it's kind of a nice break to hear them rock out for a bit.
It's the most Black Sabbath sounding song on the record too.
Yeah,
I would have to agree with that.
I also feel like so far it's the only song that has real like it's really reaching for something, you know, aesthetically beyond just like, oh, it's a rock song.
Yeah.
Like, especially with, you know, all the atmospheric bits with those, you know, bell-like thudding guitar strings and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
All right.
Our boy Geoffrey.
So now this next track would put us on to side 2, and here's where things take a bit of a turn for me. Track number 6, titled Digital Bitch. No, my ears.
That one is a challenging listen for sure.
The production quality has taken a precipitous drop by this point.
It is.
I mean, the guitars were tinny on the last one. This one is tinny. This is so tinny.
Yeah, it's being played so fast too that you can't even. There's no definition to
it's
the note.
Nearly unlistenable every time it gets to a guitar solo.
Yeah, it just really falls flat. We're definitely one of the weaker tracks on an already pretty weak album.
Yeah,
it sounds like it could have been a rejected Deep Purple song to me. Call it Purple Sabbath or, you know, Deep Black. You know,
sure.
It just kind of has that same kind of tempo, vibe, and drive as a Deep Purple song,
totally.
just without the talent.
Yeah, just like an updated Highway Star.
Pretty much, yeah. It's very similar to
Got that
Highway
same
Star.
tempo.
Personally, I did not need to hear 38-year-old at the time Ian Gillan singing about how the titular digital bitch, who I'd assume is like an XP for Paris Hilton or Kim Kardashian of the time period, I didn't need to hear him talk about how she needs a loving and dominant master.
Yeah, that didn't age well,
I really didn't need to hear that. No, you don't understand. I really, really, really did not need to hear that.
All right, I understand. Put down the knife.
Yeah. Who left all these knives here from last week? It's like a pervy, nowhere nearly as good Highway Star made unlistenable by those guitar solos.
Highway Star for the creepy uncle.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's just like offensive sounding, but like more than anything else, it's just like there's no break. It's very tiresome.
Yeah. And I just know that at some point I had to have been in some kind of high school band that had that exact same chorus.
Yeah.
Like, I just know high school me would have thought that was so deep. Just like, digital bitch, digital bitch. No, Mom, we don't want gushers. Go away. We're invoking Satan.
Is Digital Bitch like also a Stabbing Westward song too or something?
Could be. Or an Also Ran Machine Head song.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
The band, not the Deep Purple album.
Not the Bush song.
Maybe.
Could be all of those things.
Yeah, all
rolled into one on one complete collection.
Sounds like we're not a fan of this song, guys.
Nah.
Absolutely not.
That was one of the worst ones on that album. So you flip the tape over, and that's the first song you hear. It's like, all right, well, maybe there's hope that this is going to get better. And
Definitely
we'll see.
starting to feel like they front-loaded this album.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, so Joe, you listened to it on cassette.
Yeah.
So what's the experience like on cassette versus, say, on a Bluetooth speaker from Spotify?
There's really, as great as analog sounds, it's the superior media, in my opinion. It still sounds like crap. It's even worse with the hiss. The compression doesn't help it whatsoever. It's still really muffled sounding. Like I said, Digital Bitch, the first second side, flip it over. You know, you're expecting something a little more exciting, but it just falls flat.
Well, I figure like Zero the Hero gives you a little bit of hope that things are going to pick up.
Yeah, and then you get to Digital Bitch, and it's like, all right, maybe there's still hope. You know, still got 3 more tracks on the album. So, But yeah, the tape, no better than YouTube or Bluetooth speaker or even earbuds. Honestly.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Analog can't save that.
No.
Yeah.
Some things analog just can't do, and that's save this album.
Yeah, and like Speaking of saving the album, I thought smoking a lot of weed would help, but it
No
helps
such luck?
on some of the older Sabbath albums. Some of the weaker tracks on their better albums, but it's definitely not saving this record.
Yeah.
What do you say we move on to track number 7 then?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Track number 7, titled, well, it's the self-titled. It's Born Again, the title of the album.
Yeah.
We've hit the power ballad of the album.
Oh, yeah. It was harmonized.
It is the
notes.
80s. I mean, we're not really in like peak power ballad territory 80s yet, but we're already just sort of like
stepping stone.
This is already just sort of being the prototype for glam metal. Why not throw a power ballad in
Right.
Oh, yeah. This is Nobody's Fool.
Oh, yeah.
Proto Nobody's Fool.
You got your clean tone intro. You got the falsetto. Oh, man. I mean, it starts out... the intro, the clean tone it's a cool riff.
It's nice.
It starts off pretty cool. And you're like, all right. And then the lyrics kick in and the vocal, and it just does not work with the clean tone that Tony Iommi's pulling off. And it's just really bad. I mean, I was listening to it again last night, and I just out loud, I said to my wife, I'm like, this is just bad. And
yeah, just a lot of dumb choices.
Yeah,
it just felt very rushed.
Yeah, it just does not work. The vocals.
Is that song memorable beyond anything but the chorus? Because I feel like that's the only memorable part of this song. Just Ian Gillan just completely hamming it up with that "Born Again."
Pretty much.
There's some cool phaser tone stuff at the beginning.
Yeah.
That kind of broke it up. Wasn't expecting that from a metal album in '83.
Right.
It sounded kind of more like 70s. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, but past I think the 40 second mark of that song, it's just downhill.
Yeah, don't worry. It's not a 50-minute epic.
Yeah, no. It feels like it though, for sure.
It sure does. Yeah.
Yeah, now that I think of it, this could be a Meatloaf song.
Yeah, 45 minutes at 350.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I have a question, so many tracks in. Has there ever been a time, even during the early Deep Purple days, when Ian Gillan didn't sound like he was too old to be singing on the song? I'm genuinely asking, because he just throughout this whole thing, I'm just starting to think this is just Joe Cocker with a floofier shirt.
I think when Perfect Strangers, by the time that album came out, you could really hear the stress and the age in his voice. I think this album really had a impact on him with the tour, because he said it was just a constant party with the tour and everything like that. So I think that really had a negative impact on his voice after this album. But yeah, totally, albums like Machine Head, and you can definitely hear.
You think maybe he exerted way too much way too early?
I think so. I think so. I think that definitely hurt him in the long run, because he's not singing like that nowadays, well into his 70s.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
yeah, we were kind of wondering what is he up to nowadays?
He's touring with Deep Purple.
Okay, yeah,
doing the nostalgia circuit.
Thing.
Yeah.
Before you got here, we were actually looking up Ian Gillan, and they picked an incredibly unflattering photo of him for his Wikipedia article.
Yeah. It just looks like somebody's grandpa.
That's exactly what we said.
I mean, he already looks like an old person, but when you pair that with that windbreaker he was wearing, that's not hard rock in the slightest.
It's grandpa at the birthday party.
It's country kitchen buffet.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Yeah, totally.
Grandpa at Cracker Barrel.
It's a little chilly out in Naples today. Gotta pack a windbreaker.
Let's not go to that place. I don't like their breadsticks. The other one is better breadsticks.
Oh, Golden Corral's got the brownies tonight. So.
It's a Thursday. That's brownie night.
No, brownie night is Friday night, you old fool.
What day is it now?
I don't know. You're supposed to keep track of the days.
Oh, jeez.
Wow, make Grandpa shut up.
I want Burger King.
Oh, boy.
Now, Timmy, we're not supposed to look at Grandpa in the eyes.
We're not supposed to look at Grandpa. Acknowledge me!
Did you hear something?
We have fun.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't call this the worst track on the album, but not great.
Nah.
Yeah.
Forgettable.
Pretty boring.
Very slow.
Yeah.
Pretty
not,
boring.
Not
Besides,
the good Black Sabbath slow.
No.
yeah. Not like slow foreboding, just slow, like listless.
It's
and
no
plodding.
Electric Funeral.
No. So let's move on. Track number 8. This one is entitled Hotline.
When will you show me a sign? When will you throw me a line?
Now it's a ZZ Top song.
Or, Judas Priest or something to that effect.
I was wondering where's the Hammond B3 organ on this track, 'cause it definitely reminds me of a Deep Purple song. It's definitely Sabbath gone purple again. He kind of has the Ozzy melody tone to his voice, and then he goes right back into the Ian Gillan shriek.
Is that pretty much the equation? Just like Deep Purple plus more distortion equals Judas Priest?
A little bit. I mean,
that seems to be what it sounds
with the
like.
falsetto and the high pitched
So
vocal.
many of the tracks on here sound like just also ran Judas Priest songs.
Very screaming for vengeance. Yeah.
Like this one in particular sounds so much like You Got Another Thing Coming.
Right. Yeah. It's got like the same meter, same type of tempo, same kind of driving beat, but again, kind of just
Not critically successful
Flat
Judas
lines.
Priest, commercially successful Judas Priest.
Right.
There's a distinct difference.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There kind of actually is.
Yeah.
No, I believe you.
If any, this is a front-loaded album. I'm calling it now. After Born Again and now this and Digital Bitch, this album was front-loaded pretty heavily.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't live up to the expectations that Trashed gave me.
I mean, I certainly don't remember Sabbath having this many, like, Let's Shag Blues type songs.
Right.
Certainly not during the Dio years, which this album was just coming off of.
Yeah.
Which had to piss off so many Black Sabbath fans.
Oh, it did. It really did. And I mean, there's still a lot of Sabbath fans that absolutely love this album, and I just can't put my finger on why, honestly. Like, a lot of my friends, this is one of their favorites.
Really?
And, yeah. I was really shocked when I found that out. Yeah, a couple of my friends were like, "Oh, it's one of my favorite albums by them," and I'm just kind of like, "Okay."
That happens a lot. Where I feel like it's like a time and a place thing for some people. Maybe they just, they were getting into Sabbath in the early '80s, and this was, oh shit, this is the new album, and they got together with their friends, and they just smoked just the right amount of weed for this record to make sense to them.
So it's more a nostalgia thing.
Yeah, probably.
Or like they were just getting into it thinking this must be what Black Sabbath sounds like without having heard any of the previous stuff.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, I guess if that's your bar, then you can only just go up from there.
Yeah.
Indeed.
But
Because if you listen to this and then you go back and listen to, the Dio stuff and the Ozzy stuff, you got to just be like, wow, this stuff is even better.
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily mean you would all of a sudden have a low opinion of this album.
Right. Yeah. I mean, coming off of Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules and then this, I mean, Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules, I love those albums. I mean, those are just incredible pieces of work, but then this comes rolling around like a steaming pile of shit rolling down a hill after the success of Ronnie James Dio, and
Oh, boy.
again, that led to his very successful solo career, and so
and Dio did Sabbath. It was after Rainbow, right?
yeah, it was I think like a year or two after Rainbow, or right around that same era. I think like the last thing Ronnie did with, don't quote me on it, but I think in like 79 was with Rainbow, maybe 1980. And then,
I think you're right, because they got the other guy, the Graham. What's his name?
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah, there was another guy before Dio.
yeah.
Or after Dio?
After Dio and Rainbow.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, I mean, this album right after the Dio years was just, to me, it was just like a shock. Just not a good shock.
Yeah, just a complete dip in quality.
It's just like completely out of left field. I was like, okay, it sounds cool on paper. All right, this is a singer from Deep Purple and Black Sabbath. Okay, sure, why not? And then press play and just like, all right, waiting for it to get good, waiting for my next Children of the Grave, or even Dio's Children of the Sea. And
it's just the spookiness just doesn't feel very genuine on this record.
Right.
very Halloween store, very spirit Halloween.
And
I mean, that's when it's even there at all.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, so much of this, as you mentioned, could have been Deep Purple songs.
Right.
And Deep Purple is not a scary band.
Exactly.
They're a rockin' band.
And I think the whole reason why it all really falls short, because this wasn't supposed to be a Black Sabbath record originally. It was supposed to be like another supergroup type of thing. And I think it was Warner Brothers. It was their idea to throw the Black Sabbath name on it because it wasn't going to sell otherwise. I mean, it might have, but it might have just fallen into obscurity if it wasn't under the Black Sabbath moniker. But,
Exactly. But like with a little more time and, better, just more time on the production and working on the songs, like they definitely could have done something better.
Absolutely.
With the personnel involved.
Yeah, I think this was just like a quick cash-in kind of,
Totally.
phoning it in, performances on everyone's part. And it could have been a little better.
Sounds
80s cocaine.
Yeah, I was going to say, sounds very similar to our previous episode.
Whatever could you be referring to?
On David Bowie's Tonight.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You mean that similarly cocaine-fused album?
Yeah. Man, that album really stinks. I'm still talking about it. It's like a bad ex.
Yeah.
Got some David Bowie Tonight backwash just sort of lingering in the studio.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Sounds like we don't really like this song. I'll just close my comments on it by saying this song is like the kind of metal music that a fictional band from a sitcom episode might be playing.
Yeah, the high school party band,
Like during an episode of like, I don't know, Who's the Boss? They're just like, hey, I won tickets to see the metal band.
Isn't the song that like Tipper Gore thinks all metal music is?
Yeah.
And they just get to the show and it's got some name like Wolf with a U. Just Wolf.
Yeah.
Or Coyote with like 3 E's.
Blood, sweat, and vomit.
Ooh.
So, seems like we're kind of in the home stretch. We're on to track number 9. Shall we give it a
Thank
listen?
God.
All right,
See if
yes.
things improve any bit from here. Track number 9. This one's titled Keep It Warm.
Since I've been joined, you leave it alone. Even now that I'm coming home, I said, keep it warm, Rick. Please my side. Nobody's gonna take away how I make you right.
Woof.
Yeah. What's to be said about it? It's the last track. It's nothing special. It sounds muddy. Ian Gillan is a horn dog. What else is new?
I'm not keeping anything warm for you, dude.
No.
Come on.
I mean, there's some nice guitar work from Ayami in the bridge, which briefly makes the song start to feel a little bit alive before it skids to a halt, so Gillan can go right back to like bar blues level material.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's another ballad. Another
Yeah.
unnecessary ballad.
Yeah, that's another faux Sabbath song.
Someone really should have informed Ian Gillan before recording started that this kind of stuff he was singing about was old hat even before the 80s began.
Right.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, as a closing track, I mean, it's kind of just, you want to skip over it. And there's no real, the whole album as a whole, the chronology just seems off. There's no real like narrative to the album itself. It doesn't really flow. It's kind of just like, oh, here's this track and then this track and then this track. It's almost
telling
like
a
a
story.
Tarantino kind of film on cassette. I mean, it just doesn't go in order. There's no rhyme or rhythm to it.
I mean,
it just,
that's true, but just based on what we heard, I also kind of feel like even if you rearrange the order of the tracks,
it's still going to be
wouldn't
stale.
have been improved.
Yeah, exactly.
There's like no good way to just sort of, arrange these tracks so that it sounds, really good.
Yeah, it's like
Imagine if that were it.
Yeah, it's like a CD on shuffle. You could put it on and just hit shuffle and it'll play and it'll just be just as stale each time.
Pretty much.
I mean, I love Deep Purple. I love Sabbath, but overall, I don't know. This it just falls a little short. I think there was too many hands on this album, too many conflicting ideas, too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, classic case.
Yeah.
I'll note right now that though we spent a lot of the review ripping on Ayami and Gillan, we didn't really pay much attention to Geezer Butler or Bill Ward or keyboardist Jeff Nichols. They're fine.
They're okay.
They did fine.
They did their jobs.
Yeah. That's pretty much all that can be expected of them.
Yeah.
They were there. They were okay.
Yep.
I hope they got their paycheck and whatever additions they needed to put on their garage. That sucker.
I hope they got that pool they wanted.
Oh, yeah. I hope Bill Ward got a new car out of the deal, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
Needed. I hope Richard Branson got his landscaping fixed after Ian Gillan drove all over it.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure that was pocket change for him.
Oh, man.
I think he's doing fine.
Yeah, I think he's okay. Oh, he lives on the moon or something.
I'm really
now,
concerned about how Richard Branson is doing.
Seriously, yeah. He is on the moon.
Yeah, I think he lives on the moon nowadays.
Oh, man, we really blew through that one.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Why don't we get to our final thoughts? So, Patrick, do you consider this album a worst of all time album?
A worst of all time? No. I thought it was going to be going into it just because of the infamy that's been associated with it. But to be honest, I've heard worse things in my day. I had some fun. It was stupid as all shit. Definitely like one of the worst Black Sabbath albums I've ever heard thus far. Like I said, like we both said earlier, I'm not too familiar with their 80s and 90s stuff, but no, not the worst.
What about you, Joe? Do you consider it a worst of all time?
I wouldn't consider it a worst of all time. I would definitely consider it their worst album, in my opinion, right up there with Technical Ecstasy.
And that one's pretty rough,
Yeah,
too.
that's a really rough listen. Again, it's got horrible production. But focusing on this, the guitars fall flat. It doesn't have that thick Iommi signature guitar sound. You got Ian Gillan, who's kind of just thrown into the mix, thrown in there with a blindfold over his eyes, not really knowing what to do. It's kind of a lost album. No real direction to it. Kind of just put it out there. It's got the Black Sabbath name stamped on it to sell a bunch of copies, and that's about it. A worst album of all time? I wouldn't go that far, but definitely Black Sabbath's worst.
Yeah.
I may blow both of your minds. I am willing to write this off as a worst of all time album.
All right.
Albeit a very, very light worst of all time album. There were just so few tracks on this album I could say I enjoyed without any hint of irony, and what few bright spots there were just overshadowed by all the bad decisions and unfortunate circumstances like the whole muffled mastering thing.
Right.
Maybe this could have worked if things had been different, though. Maybe if the songwriting, maybe if Ian Gillan had tried to, write an actual Black Sabbath song instead of just writing Deep Purple behind a Black Sabbath backdrop. Or maybe if they'd picked someone other than Ian Gillan, this would have been a good time to find, some newcomer to the metal scene and introduce them to, just introduce them to the public or something.
I still want that Michael Bolton record to sell.
Oh, God. That would have been great.
Whatever the case, this is what Black Sabbath fans ended up with, and it set off a course of really terrible Iommi solo project albums with the Black Sabbath moniker attached to it, and it basically wrote the band off for just years. So, yeah, not a good ending.
No.
Yeah, just kind of a downturn for these guys. It's too bad. Because, it's pretty relevant to note that these guys released 6 or 7 slamming albums in a row.
Yeah.
Right.
In the early 70s.
Yeah.
And then for this to happen, that's kind of sad.
Yeah, right up until Sabotage, and then it kind of just started
It did a little
going
dip.
down. And then when Heaven and Hell came around, and then Mob Rules, those 2 albums were fantastic. I mean, I really thought...
Ronnie James Dio pulled it out.
Yeah, and then I really wish he would have stuck around a little bit longer and throughout the 80s. But again, he did come back in 92 with Dehumanizer, so that made up for it. That made up for a decade of crap from Sabbath. So
He came back to tour a couple of times, I think, too.
yeah, and there was a brief reunion, I think. I want to say it was Live Aid. I'm not entirely sure, with Ozzy in the original lineup of Black Sabbath. That
You
they
mean
did.
before the really big return with 13?
Yeah, this was, I want to say 1986 or 1987. It was just Ozzy went up, and I think he did probably 3 or 4 songs, the hits like Paranoid, War Pigs, that kind of stuff.
He probably made them do a couple Ozzy songs too.
Probably,
You just
yeah.
know that.
Yeah, the period in the 80s when Ozzy looked like somebody's aunt.
His Steven Tyler period.
Yeah, or his Stevie Nicks period. Or
So, let's get to our best/least bad tracks. What would you say is your best/least bad track on this album, Pat?
This barely
if
counts.
you have one.
This barely counts, but Stonehenge. Why the fuck not?
Wow.
It's pretty.
That's pretty unfortunate that's your favorite track on the album.
That was it.
That does not speak well on the rest of the album.
Do I need to pick a real track?
No.
Okay. That's it.
Joe, what was your favorite track?
I'd probably say Zero the Hero. It's one of the more traditional sounding Sabbath songs, albeit boring. But, I mean, compared to everything else on the album, it's got the best groove to it. It flows a little bit better than the rest. Gillan's vocals actually kind of work with the meter of the guitars and the drums and everything. And a lot of bands have covered that one song, and this is probably the standout track on the album. So I'll say Zero the Hero.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that too, for like all those reasons, and it just sort of feels like that's the only one where they had some ideas of their own beyond just very typical sort of rock cliches.
Yeah, for sure.
What would you say is your least favorite track on the album, Pat?
My least favorite was probably Digital Bitch.
Joe, what was yours?
I'm going to say Born Again, the title track.
My least favorite was also Digital Bitch.
That would be my second least favorite. But
not good.
Yeah,
not
we
good
said all we
slightest.
needed to say about it. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast,
Hey,
Joe.
thanks for having me. I had a wonderful time. This is really cool.
Do you have anything that you want to plug?
I am playing a show with Martyrvore down at Dusk in Providence, Rhode Island, May 26th. A band called Crucifier, another band called Head Rot, and bass player from Martyrvore's other band, Vane.
Awesome.
It'll be nice night of metal down in wonderful club Dusk down in Providence.
It's a good spot.
Yeah, Dusk is great.
I love Dusk. My second favorite venue to play in all of
Just
New
in
England.
general?
Yeah, in general.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
I'm going to try to make it down to that one, I think.
Awesome. Yeah. It would be a good time. Yeah.
You got anything to plug, Pat?
I have nothing really. I'm just, I'm going on vacation. Actually, I will have already gone by the time this episode comes out, but like I'm taking a break from like thinking about those sorts of things until I get back. But yeah, just going to dive right back into writing probably this summer and hopefully get some new,
cool.
some new smell like EP maybe, and maybe do like a Bears for Years EP like at the end of the year.
Awesome.
Yeah. But you?
I guess I'll plug my band Surprise Party. On the 27th of this month, we're playing a gig at Zuzu with a couple other Boston bands, American Apparel, the Guilloteenagers, and the 4 Point Restraints.
Oh yeah.
So that ought to be pretty fun.
Yeah, that'll be a good time.
And that's about it. I guess that's about it for today, right?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. That about does it for Jukebox Zeroes. Our theme song is Sunny Day by the band Froggy and the Friendship. You can check them out at froggyandthefriendship.bandcamp.com. If you've got an album you want to suggest for us to review or just want to leave us some feedback or a comment, email us at jukeboxzeroespodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/jukeboxzeroespodcast or on Twitter at twitter.com/jukeboxzeroes. And you can find us, rate us, review us, and subscribe to us on both Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. And our archive main page is jukeboxzeroes.podbean.com. So that'll just about do it for Jukebox Zeroes. I'm Lee.
I'm Patrick.
And remember...
I don't know. Good night.
It's going to turn into Morning Zoo Crew with the sound effects.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We're heading
I mean,
there.
first the stylophone last week, and now this.
Oh, you're going to get the horn.
Oh, yeah, and some toilet flushes.
I'm sorry.